Grace and peace, everybody. April Chapman here with the Standard of Truth podcast. Today, I wanted to discuss an article that I ran across regarding former gubernatorial candidate Stacy Abrams. As you know, I did not support Stacy Abrams in her run for governor of the great state of Georgia, and by God's grace, she did not win. I have fundamental issues with her worldview and her politics and her policies. And I did not believe that she was a good and viable candidate for the future prosperity of this state. And so, what I wanted to do is discuss this article that I came across post the election and just to give some commentary and to help God's people and those who may not be believers further understand why I won't even say unfortunately, why I just cannot, in good faith, throw my support behind Democratic candidates. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And I want you to see this article right here. Um, Stacey Abrams raised a lot of money. She came with very deep pockets. She had money from George Soros and money from Hollywood elites. Lots of people outside of the state of Georgia was really putting a lot of money behind her campaign in hopes that it would push her across the finish line to win. And she lost again. Obviously, she lost by 8 points. But her campaign is still in debt. And not only that, she has screwed over her staffers. Former governor, in her own mind, Stacey Abrams, blew through $100 million. Lost by more, I'm sorry, correction. She lost by more than 7 points. I think it was 8 points. And when they say more than seven, that would constitute eight. Is still in debt and screwed her staffers just in time for the holidays. After raising more than $100 million in her second bid to be Georgia governor, the Stacey Abrams campaign, not Stacey Abrams, but the campaign in which was the overseer of. Keep in mind, she was trying to govern our state, but let's keep going. The campaign owes more than $1 million in debt to vendors. Two-time campaign manager Lauren Grow-Wargo confirmed to Axios. Abrams has been heralded for her fundraising prowess and had brought in donations at a presidential level earlier in the year. But money became so tight that most of the 180 full-time staffers were given an abrupt paycheck cutoff date just a week after the November election. People have told me, quote, that they have no idea how they're going to pay their rent in January. One former staffer told Axios, it was more than unfortunate. It was messed up. How do you blow through $100 million in a state with only 10 million people? And then she got shellacked by 7.5 points. From the sounds of it, the campaign was as mismanaged as any Stacey Abrams administration would be. One staff member told these Axios clowns that, oh wow, Breitbart, this is not as impartial as I would have liked it to be, but the content is still nonetheless. As a Christian, here's what I want you to learn. I don't care if you're reading right-leaning news or left-leaning news. You don't lean to either side. You lean on the truth, right? The truth is she really is in debt over $100 million. And the truth is that people have not gotten paid, and they won't be getting paid because the campaign is $100 million in debt. But notice the tone of this article. It is very disparaging. They're being a little demeaning, and I get it, right? She's just not a popular person, and a lot of people just did not think she was a good candidate. So filter through all of that, and let's just stick to the meat and the heart of the matter. That compensation was high for campaigns. Oh, overpaid to lose. Another source said Abrams has a well-documented pattern of running a campaign where there's always been more money in the future that can fix the mistakes of the past. The reason why I want to focus on that is because our state right now financially is in a very good position under the leadership of Governor Brian Kemp, we actually have a surplus. We have more money at the end of the month when bills are due. And that comes from, granted, I have my issues with Kemp too. However, I was willing to throw my support behind Governor Kemp as the candidate because he has governed this state well and he has fulfilled his promises that he campaigned on, particularly implementing constitutional carry in this state. That was very, very important for conservatives in light of the fact, specifically, it's a constitutional right. We should not need special legislation, such as you need to go fulfill this demand and get this license and do this and jump through all of these hoops just to do what the Constitution already affords you, which is the right to bear arms. He's done a lot of good for the state, has managed the budget well, and so therefore our state is not in debt. He's done a lot for agriculture. He's done a lot for farmers. He's done a lot for small business owners, of which I was able to benefit. So, in terms of him being good for Georgia, he did his job. You don't have to like a candidate. We're not going out for lunch. I'm not taking you out for breakfast. I just need you to do what I elected you to do, which is if you campaigned and made promises, I need you to deliver. And Governor Kemp did that. But notice how, if you knew anything about the gubernatorial race in Georgia, Stacy was so ready to get her hands on that surplus money and turn it into a socialistic slosh fund where she was just going to be making it rain in programs and things that we don't need and that nobody asked for in an effort to appease people who are in love with handouts, who have no desire to work hard for anything, but for people who feel entitled to things. And so she would have blown through that money had she been allowed to win. We would not be in the fiscally responsible position that our state is in now. She was allowed to win because she made promises. She's always governed from a position of what I'm going to do or what we could be doing with that money versus recognizing that this is not my money. This is taxpayer money, and I need to be a good steward over it and make sure that I'm handling this money responsibly. Only Hollywood would make someone with the track record the president, with such a only someone would make someone with that track record the president of Earth, and then to screw their own staffers just in time for the holidays. Who does that? Abrams is worth millions. She personally has a very high net worth. But why is it that she is unable to govern her own campaign to where at the end of the day, even after she loses, the campaign is in debt and people are not getting paid? This was your golden girl, DNC. This was the woman that you tried to sell to Georgia to say, this is the change that we need to believe in. The one who wants to murder and slaughter babies wholesale, right? Who wants to champion everything for the alphabet community and claims to love Black people, but disrespects publicly Black men and shames our men into blaming them for the reason why she's not making inroads in the community. These are the godless people that they wanted to run our state. Absolutely not. Someone who's against school choice. When anyone who has a thinking brain knows that school choice is needed, particularly for communities of color, because the schools in our communities do not perform well. Not because we don't have money, not because there's not enough funding, right? But because there is a culture problem. And parents in those school systems who are like, listen, for whatever reason, this is where I live. I can't move, but I don't want my kid in this school and I need options. I need the option. Give me my taxpayer money so I can take my money and put it where I believe my child would be best educated. People like Stacey Abrams was against school choice. Why? Because she's got the teachers unions and other lobbyists, outsiders who hold interest other than the interests that matter to the people on the ground calling the shots. So, why wouldn't she help these people out? The article says, especially the low level staffers who need rent money through the holidays. Don't they claim to always want to just raise the minimum wage to a livable wage as opposed to saying we need to figure out why let's do something about the inflation problem, right? They never come with real solutions. They come with promises that they never keep so that they can get in office, amass wealth. We're trying to figure out how does she amass as much wealth as she has, considering she did not serve in Congress for that long. Like, what does she do to earn income outside of be a professional career politician? She's not broke. Well, she's got some money, she's got some debt issues, but she's proven in her own life that she does not manage her own money well. And somehow the Democrats thought that she would be good for Georgia and would be able to manage our taxpayer money well. But here at the end of her campaign, they're $1 million in debt. And even the low level people, the people she claims to represent, they're not even getting paychecks and have no idea how they're going to pay their rent this January. You don't do that, the article says. You don't give people an abrupt paycheck cutoff date in November. You especially don't do it if you are a millionaire like Abrams. The campaign said that raising money was difficult near the end because everyone knew she would get beaten. Okay, but you still had 100 million. You raised 100 million, right? Everybody knows most people who vote Democrat, they're going to vote Democrat. So they weren't the ones that needed to be convinced. But for whatever reason, they put all of this money in the state of Georgia, knowing that it was a very, very low possibility of her winning. And the campaign is still in a deficit. A little off topic, but this race is one reason why I don't buy all the talk about the GOP has to get tougher with mail-in ballots, ballot curing, etc. So this is the perspective of the writer John Nolte giving in his 2-cent opinion at the end. And I'm going to read it because I actually have some commentary about it. He doesn't think that the GOP should be putting money and wasting resources in mail-in ballots and ballot curing and so forth and so on. He was like, I'm not saying Republicans should improve there, but look at what happened in Georgia. Republican Governor Georgia Kemp won by 7.5 points. A few weeks later, Republican U.S. Senate candidate Herschel Walker lost by 1 point. That literally means that race was tight. And Walker was dealing with nowhere near as much money as Warnock had. Anyway, it says a few weeks later, I mentioned that part, he lost by 1 point. That's not a situation where the GOP learning how to game mail-in votes will change everything. That's a situation where one candidate was more tolerable to voters than another. Candidates matter. Cure all the balance you want. Candidates still matter. So here's what I'll say about that. I think you can do both and. You should be able to chew bubble gum and walk. I was highly critical of the Republican Party because I felt that, listen, if Herschel's going to be your candidate, you need to do a bang up job, a absolute perfect job of telling his story. And I don't believe they did that. They did not tell his story. Why do I say that? For example, yesterday, I was interviewed by the Associated Press. They wanted to talk to someone who used to be a Democrat, and then in recent years, what they consider recent years is pretty much anything after 2012, who changed parties. And so I got tagged. Someone called me, reached out to me and said, listen, would you be interested in giving an interview? I was like, absolutely. So I met the criteria. I came out the womb a Democrat. That's all my family knows. All we know is Democrat blue, right? Not because we aligned with the values, but because it was cultural. If you grow up in in urban context, and if you happen to share a brown skin, if you're black, 9 times out of 10, you're going to be a Democrat. Not because you've thought through the positions, not because you've examined the party platforms and then decided, oh, I want to be a this. I want to be a Democrat. I want to be a Republican. I want to be a libertarian, or I want to be an independent. That those discussions don't take place. You kind of just go along with the status quo because it's how your family always voted. However, after 2012, and I told the reporter at the Associated Press, three things happened to me. I told her, I said, I became a mom, right? I became a Christian, and then I became a small business owner. I embarked upon the road of entrepreneurship. Those three life events is what caused me to examine the Democratic Party platform at a policy level. And then I needed to make a decision, right? Remember, these three life events, I said, I am a mom. I have children now. That means when I vote, I can't just go into the voting booth and be like, you know what? I don't even really know any of these people. I don't know what they stand for. I don't know what they vote for. I'm just going to pick something. No, no, no. I bear a greater responsibility because one, this is the world that my children are going to live in, and I need to make sure that when I vote that I am leaving things for them better than they are now. When I was single and didn't have any kids, I didn't really care that much about politics. I was just like, I'm doing me. I was just being like most young people. They don't think about these things until they actually have to become responsible for someone else, and then they realize the implications of their decisions actually matter. So becoming a mama, that woke me up real quick, and I became concerned about the educational system. Why? Because I knew eventually my children were going to have to go to school. And I also knew, even as a Democrat, that the school system where I was raised and was forced to pretty much attend was horrible. It was horrible. It was trash. And my mother fought so hard. If she had just had school choice, you know, other options would have been available to us. But within the confines of the structure that we grew up in, my mother had to literally buck the system and fight so that I could go to different schools outside of my school district. And she almost did so at the peril of getting in trouble, meaning she had to stand up for herself and say, I don't care where we live. My daughter is not going to that school. She's going over here. Right. So becoming a mom I became keenly aware of the educational system, right? What are these kids learning in school? It's something about when you have children, it is this natural desire to you're just awakened to things that you never noticed before. Now all of a sudden I'm concerned about agriculture and the FDA. Well, what the heck is in our food? What am I feeding my child? Because your job is to care for your children and protect your children. And so health became a big thing, not this modern medical establishment, but health at an intrinsic level. I wanted to know, why is it that aspartame, which is a known carcinogen and a neurotoxin, is being pushed and sold as this health food that can make foods taste sweet, right, without the calories? Like, I wanted to know the implications of things that most people, I know I'm a little different, but most people don't think about these things. And I started to think about them. So the second thing that caused me to rethink my deeply held convictions and presuppositions was after I became a parent, I became a Christian, right? The Lord saved me. He supernaturally gave me a new heart, took out my heart of stone, gave me a heart of flesh, and my worldview changed. No longer was it, oh, well, marriage is pretty much whatever people want it to be. I don't need to be involved in that. The scriptures informed my worldview to where I said, no, the scriptures teach that God created marriage. This is an institution that belongs solely to Him. We don't just get to manipulate it and say love is love. No, 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 we can't do that. And then as a Christian, I was compelled to affirm that life begins at conception and that God is the author of life. We don't get the right to say who lives and who dies based on their age of devastation. I had these moments where I was examining. I used to be pro-choice. Remember, I used to be a Democrat, very liberal. I used to be a feminist, right? But having children, getting married, becoming a Christian, and then lastly, becoming self employed, being an entrepreneur, right? Now I am concerned about taxes at a legitimate level because there's no longer employer contributions and then they just take it out the check and then what I get is what I get. No, I am responsible for every dollar that comes in. I need to know where it's going. I woke up real quick when I had to determine where we were going to put our business and which county would be easy to do business with, I started realizing that Democrats are not pro small business. They put barriers in our way to keep us from flourishing. When I first moved to Georgia, right? Coming from New York, it is very difficult to start a business. You have licensing and regulations, and you've got to get certificates for this and a license for that, and you got to pay this fee, and it's like you can't flourish. You can't, they really put barriers in your way, bureaucratic, just roadblocks that prevent you from, listen, if you got a product or a service and a way to get paid, you in business, right? And they say they're doing it for your own good. And like I told the reporter with the Associated Press, I said, listen, I, as a small business owner, recognized real quick that I was forced to leave the Democratic Party because when you examine the policies and the positions that the party takes, it doesn't, they're in my way, right? The GOP, with its flaws and all, they got out of my way so that I could just be a respectable, law abiding citizen and flourish based on my own effort. I don't want your government handouts. I don't need you in my business telling me what to do with every single aspect of my life. I need you to restrain wickedness, maintain law and order, and leave me the heck alone. And so in essence, the reason why I became a conservative and I historically vote for Republicans is because at a policy level, they are night and day. I don't want socialism. Socialism is theft. Socialism is death. Socialism is destruction. And I get it. People are going to argue, well, Social Security is a form of socialism and you don't have issues with that. I am not saying that there are not some services that the government should not or cannot provide at a basic human level. What I am talking about is the overlording to where the government thinks they are God and they literally want to lord over you. They want to parent your children. They no longer want parental autonomy to where now parents are considered domestic terrorists. If we decide to go to a school board meeting and say, absolutely not, you're not going to indoctrinate my kids with this sexual perversion. I sent my child here to learn math and science and how to read and how to think. But instead, you want to tell my children what to think, and you're not equipping them to go out into the world to compete with our foreign counterparts. Asians are whipping up on us left and right in math and science because we too busy telling little white kids that they got white privilege and they need to lay their white privilege aside and that, white is bad, white is evil, and telling black people and little black kids that they're oppressed and the reason why they can't achieve and do this and do that is because of someone else out there versus empowering our children that they are smart and they are capable and that they can do things if they learn some discipline and structure, learn to submit themselves under the authority of others. These are things that, for me, I was like, I can't be Team DNC because Team DNC is destructive to our country and detrimental, particularly for people who look like me. So, why is all of this important? Why am I doing this story talking about Stacy Abrams and her $100 million deficit at the end of her campaign? The reason why I'm doing this is because I want to help people, particularly Christians, see that we're in an ideological war and that these people who claim to be for you just because they look like you do not make them righteous or moral or they can be trusted to do the right thing. Now, the same can be said for Republicans. I got smoke for them too. Right now, Mitch McConnell, I got issues with you, Mitch, because no, the vast majority of Republicans do not support you sending our taxpayer money over to Ukraine. But I digress. That is not our number one priority. Our number one priority right now, along with others, is getting this daggone border secure with all the people that are flooding in left and right, placing undue burdens on our economic system and on our border patrol, our safety, the drugs coming in, the sex trafficking. These are issues. The economy, this darn inflation with $10 eggs is ridiculous. I'm a small business owner. I'm in the furniture industry. This inflation is kicking our tail. Why? Because people are like, listen, I'll sleep on the floor because right now I need food. And so, yes, these are things that matter and affect me. And so, for my audience, my Christian audience, I know that there are still some Christians that supported Stacey Abrams despite the fact that she's pro baby murder, right? Despite the fact that she is pro, let's spend all your money. I don't need to give an account for this money. I just want to spend it, right? Who is pro alphabet community, who is willing to go out of her way and make concessions for a minority, a small segment of our state who already can function and move just like the rest of us, but they need special privileges, right? Someone who wants CRT in our schools and who wants your children indoctrinated and who is not interested in school choice because she's paid for and bought by Hollywood elites and those that want you to own nothing and be happy doing it. That's why I wanted to talk about this story, and that's why it matters. We dodged a bullet. We dodged a bullet because this woman has demonstrated that she is incapable of running a fiscally responsible campaign. What makes us think that she would have governed any better? This is not new. She has demonstrated that this is a pattern of how she functions at a financial level. Our state would have been in ruin. And I say this all the time and I get it. When we have to level criticism against people who share our ethnic image, who look like us, meaning when I don't understand, white people don't have to live under this kind of pressure. They're able to level criticism against their own without fear of being called a sellout. But for whatever reason, when one black person, specifically a black woman, has to level legitimate concern, accountability, or criticism to another black woman, it's like we're unable to make the proper category distinctions to say, well, forget the fact of what I look like. Is what I'm saying true? Am I making a fair assessment? I would argue in this situation that I am. Who cares that we look the same? Right is right and wrong is wrong. And this is another problem that I have with the Democratic Party. They want everyone to think the same. And if you don't think like us, then you need to be anathematized because we can't tolerate, there's no room for independent thought and there is zero accountability. And I'm gonna go on record and I'm gonna say it and you can make it go viral. I really don't care. The fact that here's the fact. The Democratic Party provides shelter for women who look like me to avoid accountability. I never see them talk about how we got here and how we are we've contributed to our own demise and why we're not winning, right? They never There's never any discussion on personal responsibility and personal accountability. And for Black women, that's right, I'm going to say it. Accountability is like kryptonite. You can't tell us nothing, and if you do, you're the problem. It's not, let me take a look within and examine my choices to see if my choices and my decisions is what got me to the place that I am. It's never that. And the DNC provides shelter and cover for the Black woman to where she is able to avoid accountability and she can blame everyone else out there for the demise of the Black community, as opposed to saying, you know what? The Moynihan report may have been right when we did something that they didn't think was possible. They gave us government handouts, and we willfully abandoned our men for the promise of a check. That's what we did. We removed our own men from the home because zaddy government said, "Hey, I'll give you this, but he can't be there." So, Georgia, you dodged a bullet. I am thankful for every constituent. I am thankful for every Black man who said, "You know what? Historically, I would vote for this party, but my discernment meter has kicked in and I'm seeing some things that don't quite sit right with me. I'm not going to throw my support behind that woman because I don't see how we're going to win as a family. I don't see how we're going to win as a community. And I definitely don't see how we're going to win as a state if I vote and support her." $1 million in debt, cutting off checks from staffers who were not expecting that to happen, all because she did not manage her campaign well. Her messaging was trash, and she really just wasn't a good candidate. Georgia was not buying what you were selling. And I hope and pray that you will either bow out of politics or go to some other blue state and tear their economy up and run that state into the ground. Because Georgia, we are not here for it. I did not relocate from New York State 25 some odd, I don't know, however many years ago I left to come and have my state being torn down from within. I'm holding the line. I was one of those Black people that said, absolutely not. I don't care if you look like me. You're not good for me. And I'll do it again if I have to. And so, in closing, listen, okay, I know I said I was going to go. One of the questions she asked me was, is there anything that the Democratic Party can do to win you back? And I said, absolutely not. I said, I can't be pro-Black. Like, I am pro-American. Yes, I am nationalistic. I love this country. There's no other country on the earth where I'd rather live, right? Yes, as a Black woman born in the Bronx, in the hood, raised by a single mama, I am nationalistic. And I don't understand why anybody who lives in any country that they love and enjoy being in would not be. But I told her, I said, I can't be an American and then have a brotherly affection for my kinsmen according to a flesh, meaning being pro-Black, pro things that are going to help my ethnicity flourish in this country. I can't do that and support the Democratic Party because they support extinguishing my people at record breaking numbers when we're already beyond the rate of replacement. What am I saying? It's one thing to say, okay, we know abortion is wrong, but why are Black people, Black women in particular, why are we so willing to exterminate our own children at the altar of convenience, feminism, career advancement? There's so many reasons why we're doing it. I said, I can't support a party that's going to continue to push this as a narrative to push it as if it's good and to push it as if we need it. Why? I said, because I don't come. My ancestors struggled with more, struggled with less, and accomplished more. I come from people that had 12 children in a family, in a 3-room house, not a 3-bedroom house, a 3-room house, and somehow managed to send all of their children to college, managed to educate doctors and lawyers and nurses and engineers and all kinds of tradespeople. We didn't need abortion. Abortion did not help us. We didn't need feminism. But feminism has not helped us either. So I said, so why would I put my support behind a party that all they want to do is constantly remind me that, you need that baby murder, because the reason why you can't get milk and groceries right now is because you allowed that baby to be born. But had you been able to kill him up until the 9th month or later, you wouldn't be in this situation. Democratic Party is not pro-family. They are anti-family and they are anti-God. And the wickedness that's on full display that has now been uncovered for all the world to see, I can't support that. So I said, no, there's nothing that the Democratic Party could do to win me back. They would have to completely abandon their current platform as they know it. And even still, I still wouldn't come back. Why? Because I know who I am in Christ. And as a Christian, I don't stand with any party and give them 100% loyalty. My loyalty is to Christ and to Christ alone. So respectfully, Associated Press, no, the DNC cannot win me back. Why? Because I can't be bought and I'm not for sale.
God is sovereign over everything. He is sovereign over the entire universe. He is sovereign over nature. He literally has created everything that exists out of nothing.
It is the doctrine of sovereign election that empowers and ignites missions, and it is the doctrine of sovereign election that guarantees the success of missions around the world.
We will not build the church according to the changing whims of an ungodly culture. We will change that ungodly culture by the power of the immutable gospel.
All I have is God wrapped himself in flesh, died on a cross, nailed my sin thereto, was placed in the grave, rose again on the 3rd day, ascended to the right hand of the Father, and is there making intercession for me until such time as my salvation is completed and he takes me home.
The more they see, the more they will love him. Stop giving them all this silly fodder and life principles and lay before them. Live your life in solitude, crying out to God. Live your life on your knees. Live your life with your Bibles torn asunder. Live your life for the people of God to be able to present to them the beauty of what he is, the glory of his cross.
There is no such thing as Mother Nature. God rules and reigns over everything. There's not a leaf that falls from a tree that God did not call it to fall at that very moment. God is in control of every single thing, meticulously ruling over the entire universe. Join us for the 2023 G3 National Conference on the Sovereignty of God.